If you plan to fail,
Failed to plan.
you failed to plan. Today we're talking on the Do Hard Things Today podcast about planning your year, why that is important, and how to do that. So we sit down with a calendar, right? We just plan out our year
Sure.
day by day.
Yeah. Why not?
Seriously? How do you do that? Okay, number one, let's start with the why. Why plan a year?
Well, when you leave your house and you get in your car, do you just go drive around the neighborhood?
It just depends on the day.
Okay. Thanks for the honesty there. But really, if you don't know where you're going, how are you going to get there?
Mm-hmm. No, obviously, I know we need to plan. We need to plan our year. Most of us don't. Most of us have one or two things that we look at and is like, hey, I really want to do that this year. But that's not planning your year.
No.
That's just saying something that you want to do.
Yes.
So we started talking about this about a month or so ago. And we were talking about looking out 5 years, looking back 5 years, figuring out what are the big things you want to do and want to accomplish, what's important to you, what are your goals, all these different things. And so it's like this big discombobulated mess of stuff that's out there. And if you're like most people, sometimes it just gets overwhelming. And you have a hard time putting those straight arrows right towards the target of what you've said is important to you. And I think what we want to do is start to build a framework for how you do that and what that process is. So you've done some work on this.
I have, because you badgered me about it.
So let's as you're sharing what you want to share, let's lay this framework for people of how do you go about. People are going to be listening to this in January, and some people will have already tried to plan a little bit and maybe it's failed. Maybe they're struggling with how to do it, don't know exactly what to do. Let's help people through this process.
So first of all, I'm definitely not an expert at this and I struggle with it. I love planning for other people, really good at planning for other people. I really hate going back and looking at my own personal stuff because I have to face it and deal with it. And I think I kind of had expressed that when you asked me about it originally and when the topic came up, because I don't think we had necessarily planned the topic quite so much. I thought it was going to be like, oh, easy. We got in here and we started talking and I was like, I just wanted to backpedal. I just wanted to get away from it. I want to get out of the room. I felt claustrophobic. I don't like looking back. I hate looking back.
Well, I don't think many people do. And why do you think that is?
Well, it forces you to face your failures. For me, I know I should look at it as, let me celebrate what I've accomplished, which I realized is an important part of looking at where you've been. You've got to look at what you did really well and what you did really poorly.
And I think for me, we use that word failure.
Sorry.
Sometimes. No. It's fair. That's a fair word. I think what I hate looking at is missed opportunities.
Oh, yeah. Okay.
That you'll never, points in time that you're going through are things that you will never get back. Now, that does not change, this is not doom and gloom. That does not change the fact that moving forward, you're in complete control over what you do. But when you look back, sometimes there is I feel a powerlessness to look back. It's like, man, when I go back 5 years, how much have I really progressed in these areas that I have said are important to me? And when I look at some of those, some of them I am actually worse at. Some of them I have made virtually no progress. Some of them I have made a tremendous amount of progress. But when you look back, it forces you to really, because you can lie to a lot of people. And when I say lie, That's a strong word. Not even trying to deceive it, but you can make believe to a lot of people.
Mm-hmm.
You can't make believe to yourself.
No, I think you have to look at everything honestly, and I guess that's why I use the word failure, because I'm not even really talking about missed opportunities there, but I think failure are things I tried to do and I did not do. That's why I failed at them.
And I think it is important to, sometimes we don't even want to say the word failure because we feel like it hurts our feelings. And we don't want to hurt anybody else's feelings. Sometimes our feelings need to be hurt, mm-hmm. because that forces you to really, because when your feelings get hurt, say, well, why are my feelings hurt? Well, my feelings are hurt because I did not do what I said I was going to do or what I tried to do. Well, why did I not do that?
Yeah, this exercise really changed my perspective going forward, because I have never done this exercise before. I am 50 years old and I have never done this.
I think it's going to be the very, 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 very rare person who has.
Well, that makes me feel a little better. Thanks.
Do you know anybody? Do you know people who've done this?
I don't know. I don't go around asking people if they plan their life.
Yeah.
Yes and no. I don't know anybody.
Whoa. What do you mean yes and no?
I don't know anybody who has done this. Logistically, I have planned my years for 25 years because of the nature of my previous job. I had to. I was dictated by a regimented schedule, and nobody alive, even including the person who made it out, knew the schedule better than me. So I knew where I was going to be on X weekend if everything went well, and I worked backwards from there. That part, the actual logistical, where am I going to be when, real-time planning, I'm good at that. Rest of it, not so much.
Okay, I'm with you there. Mm-hmm. And, looking back and trying to understand why I did things that I did, it helped me realize why I love sports so much and why I love triathlon. It's very concrete. You're training for a race. You train for it. You build for it. You plan in other races. You always have a focus. It's very easy. It's very neat. It's very organized. Even if you get hurt, you kind of know which direction you need to go in. But life does not necessarily. It's not that neat to organize.
Or is it? Okay.
Maybe if I took the time and effort that I put into planning to train for an Ironman into my life, things might look a lot different.
Jed said something that made sense, and I think it goes along with what you work backwards. Mm-hmm. So let's use training as a case study. So end of September, I have the biggest thing on my calendar physically for 2024 is Ironman Chattanooga. Mm-hmm. So that is the point in time when the culmination of what I'm trying to do and my goals comes to fruition on that day. Mm-hmm. So it is very neat. You work backwards. So where do I need to be in the end of August? Mm-hmm. Where do I need to be the end of July? The end of June? The end of May? The end of April?
You'll find that on your training plan.
The end of March? The end of February?
Right.
The end of January?
Right.
Okay.
It's easy.
Where do I need to be in those things? And then I work towards that. Then I get up that day and I have a workout to do. I do that workout. When I finish that workout, it's going to take me to that first little point of end of January. This is where you are. And are you making the progress you need to make?
Well, every day you make progress, and every day you can see the progress that you're made because your schedule turns from red to green when you've done your workout.
So tell me why life is not like that.
I don't know. I think it's the lack of planning. I don't necessarily take my life, like, I'm really good about putting everything on the calendar, but putting everything on the calendar and planning and being strategic are two different things.
What do you mean put it on the calendar?
Well, I like know where I am for all my weekends. I have a calendar where that's all written in there. I know where I'm going for those weekends. But that is not necessarily, that's not the big picture. And I think that we get kind of caught in that conundrum of, well, I'm going to be here. I'm going to go here. I'm going to do this race. There's my plan. There's my year plan. But yet you're leaving out a lot of the important parts of life.
Well, if you've got a race at the end of September, that is something that you are shooting at.
It is. But what about your family?
What
about your finances? You can't ignore one area in pursuit of the other.
That's another thing that working backwards helped me with is none of my plans were concrete. Most of them were if a team makes it to this point. Fridays were I'll be somewhere. Don't know exactly where yet.
Right.
The good part of the high school sports schedule is that in the spring you can be somewhere every night and nobody expects you to be. So you can steal a night here and there. And sometimes teams don't make it as far as you think they will, so you don't have to go to that championship game. But the key is when you are working backwards, when you have a race, when you do have these other things that are set, the plans with your family have to be just as concrete. This is what I'm doing, and I don't care what else happens. This is what I'm doing. And if you forgot something and you scheduled family for that day, well, then you just forgot it and you missed it. Because it doesn't have family time and time that you invest in things outside of work and other things that govern your life aren't as important as those things. They're more important. So you work back and you protect the more important stuff as much as you protect where you have to be on your other schedule.
Well, Stephen Covey, 7 Habits of Highly Effective People. It is one of the top 2 or 3 most impactful books I've ever read. And he lays a framework for what are the things that you should be doing. And he breaks them out into these 4 quadrants. And I don't want to get too deep in the weeds on this, but basically it is, where do we spend most of our time? And we spend most of our time dealing with things that are on quote unquote fire. They're extremely urgent. They may be, basically you've got important, unimportant, urgent, not urgent. And so the things that are urgent are things that are on fire, deadlines, things that are coming at you really, really quick, things that you've got to go extinguish. But the real magic happens in the quadrant that is, it's the quadrant of important, but not urgent. And what that is, those are the things that they will eventually become. He uses the example of your health, of it's eating the right things, a regular exercise regimen, and those kind of things. Those are things that are really important, but they're not urgent. If you go today for lunch and have something horrible for your health, more than likely you're not going to fall over dead. If you don't get your 30 minutes or 45 minutes of getting your heart rate up today, more than likely you're not going to just fall over dead. But if you do that for 15, 20 years, it's going to move out of that quadrant of being important and not urgent to being important and urgent. And you're going to be forced to act. You talk about relationships, you talk about family. Those things are, when you talk about how you're scheduling, you're going to schedule your job. You're going to schedule these things that you've got to do, but then your family, which is important but not urgent, that's why they kind of get kicked to the side. It's like, oh, well, I got to do this. There will always be time for that. And there's not.
And that's where I think when you were talking about missed opportunity, that was kind of the first thing that came to mind, because, it's so easy to be like, we'll hang out tomorrow. We'll do something tomorrow. Tomorrow. And you just find yourself saying that over and over again. And all of a sudden it really is a missed opportunity.
It's a missed opportunity. And so you talk about a race.
Mm-hmm.
So end of September, I have that. What am I looking at from a standpoint of this year? What am I really? I believe, and I've said this, 4 areas: fitness, family, finances, and faith. They're like 4 tires on a car. One of them gets out of whack, everything's going to be out of whack.
Yes. And if you don't do what you're supposed to do with each one when you're supposed to do it, then everything's out of whack.
It is out of whack. And that's why we like, and that's why you like having something on your calendar for a race.
Mm-hmm.
You got a race on your calendar, then it's very easy to work backwards and to do. I've got to do these things because I'm heading towards that point of where I'm trying to go. It's harder to put into concrete terms. Okay, what am I working on with my family? What is my big goal this year with my family? Speaking in terms of races, what's my A race with my family? How do I want to progress my family relationship with my children and with my wife and with my other family members? How do I want to progress that down the road this year? And how do I find those markers of what does that look? Because when you do that, what happens is then you break that all the way back down into a framework of, you know what? It is important, to Jed's point, of there needs to be a night where I go out on a date with my wife every single week and there's no kids involved. Need to make the time to do that.
But how many people really do that? I keep hearing that advice all the time, and I'm like, how does that happen? How do you make that happen?
Well, you make it happen if it's important.
Mm.
I'll tell you, Jed's good at that. They do. They love trivia.
Are you good at that?
I'm not good at that.
I'm not good at that.
I'm not good at that. But it is, if you make it important, you put it on your calendar. And you can't pencil, you can't write in pen all of your business things, all of your workouts, all of these things, and then look and say, and I'm going to pencil in this.
And if you make it important and you protect it and it's something you do all the time, life happens. And it's much easier to treat something with a little bit more grace and a little bit more leeway if you know it's important and you treat it like it's important. And this is an emergency that's got to be handled right now. And I'm sorry, we're going to have to put this off till next week or tomorrow or whatever. Okay. Because I know it's important to the other person. We do it all the time. They take it seriously. I take it seriously. Okay. This once we can breathe on this one. It makes that a lot easier.
But I think that comes back to, having everything kind of be aligned, doing what you're supposed to do when you're supposed to do it. That allows you that freedom for when there really is something urgent. There really is that fire that you can deal with it and not feel like, oh my gosh, now, because if you haven't been doing what you're supposed to, that's when kind of everything just falls apart.
Neither demand, what's the better way to put this? Work can't always win.
Yeah.
Work can't always win.
That's a great point.
You can't feel like you're fighting a battle against the other person's time and you're losing every single time.
Right.
Sometimes you got to get on the scoreboard.
Great advice. Wow. That was deep.
Yeah. It is deep, but you said, but how many people do that? And most people, there's one area of their life that they win in, but they're losing in these other areas.
I would agree.
And they become awesome at something. But then there's oftentimes for men, a lot of times where do we get our sense of worth? And sometimes you find that in work. Well, you hear the old adage of you never talk to somebody on their deathbed and they said they wish they would have spent more time at work, no matter how successful they were. They'd never say that. It's the things, that's when they start thinking about the things that really matter. And when I did this, I started looking back 5 years and then looking to now, like for me, I had in that 5 years ago, all my kids were still at home. We got 5 children. All of them are still at home. Now I've got one that's about to graduate college. Got another one that's 2 years into college. I got another one that's about to graduate high school. And then my baby is in 8th grade. And man, I look back 5 years and just those 2 words, missed opportunities. There are opportunities that I had with them while they were in my home that I could have chose to spend time with them. And like Jed said, sometimes work won. And a lot of times work won. And those are missed opportunities. Okay, so that's the spilled milk on the floor. Why I think that is such a valuable exercise is because you can look down and you can see the spilled milk on the floor.
Mm-hmm.
So when you see that spilled milk on the floor, you got a couple choices. You can cry on it. I'm just going to cry about the spilled milk. All these opportunities are gone. And those opportunities are gone. Or you can face them and say, these are mistakes I made. Here I am. Here I am. So what do I do moving forward to not make those same mistakes again? And I think it is looking, I talked about this in one of the podcasts, couple of podcasts back. I did mine in some statements of I am the kind of man that, and it, some of those were very, very personal.
Mm-hmm.
And when I said that, it was, this is what I want to be said about me by people that I'm the closest to, my family, my wife, my children, those that know me, my friends, people I'm in the community with. People. And when you start doing that, it's giving you something to shoot at. That was my way of manifesting it, to be able to say, these are the things that I'm shooting at. Why is it so important when people cross the finish line, and people that, for those of you that are in triathlon and you come across the thing and they say, I can't wait to hear the words when they say, you have no idea what's going to mean to me. When I cross the finish line and they say, Kevin Harrison, you are an Iron Man. Now that may sound ridiculous, but
not at the moment. It doesn't.
Why is that so important? You know why it's so important? Because it is a verification of all the hard work that you put in. And it is laying that on you. I think the same thing for what do we really want to be? And in these different areas of our life, what do we want to be? What kind of man do I want to be? What kind of woman do you want to be? What do you want to be said about you? And when you really do it like that, you start to find out. What I started looking at was, gosh, I spend a lot of my resources and time maybe chasing the wrong thing so hard. And then you got to step back and start looking at where, okay, let's back this all the way back. And then you get down to a point of, in a week, if I want to be the kind of man that my family can 100% depend on, and they know that I love them completely unconditionally, what does that look like? How does that look like in my week? What does that look like daily? What does that look like? And I started breaking it down even to a standpoint of how much time, how much individual, I've got this stuff written down. How much individual time do I need to spend with each one of my children every single week? Uninterrupted, just me and them.
And you have 5 kids.
5. How much time do I need to spend every single week uninterrupted with my wife? And you need to make it a priority to, because when you get some of us who are so, I used to take this as a badge of courage. Everywhere I go and everybody talk to me, they would almost start every text, email, or call with these words.
I know you're busy.
Hey, man, I know how busy you are. And it made me feel so good. I mean, I'll just be honest with you. Just point. It made me feel so good. It made me feel so important.
Do you really want to be busy?
No. When you look at what is that really, what is that stealing from it? And so then, like Jed, you were talking about with your on your calendar, you know, I should start with, okay, what are the things that are most important with me? Well, every week I'm going to start my calendar with those things. Those things are going on my calendar. And then all these other things, work, all the other people that want a piece of you. You know, you talk about that vitamin N, saying no to people. Everybody else that wants a little piece of you and wants you to do something for them, if it doesn't fit into your calendar, the answer is no.
So can I elaborate on this?
You go right ahead. I've talked a lot.
So there's this, I don't know, I've seen videos of it, or who knows, maybe it's a TikTok thing, I don't know. But there's like a professor, and he has a glass, and he fills it up with coffee, and he says, is this full? And everybody's like, yeah, it's full. And he's like, yeah, but look at this, you know, I can put some rocks in here, and I can put some sand in here, and, you know, like it all kind of fills in, and the coffee will bubble over, but you can fit it all in the same jar. But you got to put the rocks in first, the big things, the important things in life. And I just always ask myself, is this a rock? Like, is this a rock? Is this something that's really that important to me? That needs to go in first. And so when I was doing the spreadsheet that we'll have available for our listeners, I put in there basically like the stuff that's important, you fill in the calendar first. And it's just a spreadsheet with every day of where I'm going to put things that are important. Then everything else fills in around that, because otherwise you really get lopsided very easily, because we're so busy and we're all so driven. And I mean, I feel like most of the people listening to this podcast are athletes, overachievers, you know, really trying to do it all and trying to do it all well, which is a fallacy. Some things always got to give. But just when I think about what you're talking about, exactly what you're talking about, like putting the rocks in first, that kind of makes a difference every time if I ask myself, like, is this a rock?
Well, you know you've gotten the most, if you put those rocks in first, you know you're getting the most important. You know, if something's going to get left out, it's going to be something that's out there on the edge that at the end of the day really didn't matter.
Right.
And you know, when you think about these areas of your life and what you're trying to do, you know, there's usually people are now they're not good in the follow through, but in January they're making plans with something to do with their weight or physical presence, and then they're usually something to do with something about finances. Need to get out of debt, need to save something like that. Those two are pretty tangible things. Those other ones are the ones that you have to be, I think you've got to be super sensitive to the fact of you have got to put concrete measures around them with your relationships, your family, your faith. Faith is something that's a part of your life. You've got to be disciplined about, okay, I'm going to do these things that are extremely important. Like Stephen Covey said, they're not urgent. If you don't do them, it's not like your marriage is not going to fall apart by not doing these for 1 week. Your children are not going to go completely off the rails by just leaving them to their own devices for 1 week. Your spiritual life is not going to completely go nil by not spending time with God for a week. But 1 week turns into 2, turns into 3, turns into 4, turns into 5, turns into 6. You look up and you're like, man, how did I get here? How did I end up here? How did my family fall apart.
But I think it's really easy to do that when you take that calendar and you're living life off all the things that are on the calendar instead of changing the focus and coming back to the things that are important. And that's why, like, it kind of resonated when Jed was like, yeah, you know, I have my calendar. I know what I'm doing. I know where I'm supposed to be. I have my schedule. But, like, there's so many other things that are really, really important to identify. And I think that's why, like, when I started doing this exercise, I was just like, wow, I have been failing in so many areas.
It's like anything else, and you have to be consistent with the way you do it. Y'all have both had a couple of great quotes today, so I'm going to give you one of my favorites. Rome wasn't built in a day, but they were laying bricks every hour.
Mm.
Oh, I like it.
It's something you've got to continue to work at and do. To your point, yeah, you can let it go a week. Don't let it go 2. If you let something go a week that's important, if it's important enough to be on your calendar, and you let it slide a week, then it moves to the very, very top next week. Yeah. Even if you have to let something else slide, you don't want to do that. You don't want the balancing act. You don't want to be juggling, spinning plates. But if you got one that you feel passionate enough about that is on your calendar already as something important, you don't go 2 weeks in a row.
Yeah, I mean, that's what your calendar's for,
yep.
To tell you what to do. And when you put it on, it's okay to tell somebody in a professional context, hey, can you come speak at this on Thursday night? It's okay to tell you, look at your calendar and you have, we're going dinner with the wife, or, you know, kid doing this with one of the children, to say, I'm sorry, man, I can't. I've already got an appointment.
Right.
And you do have an appointment on your calendar that's written down in that. It sounds even silly for me saying that.
Right. But that's what you were talking about trivia a while ago. That's what I do. And any question, the answer to any question right now is, I'm sorry, I have a standing 6:30 appointment on Thursday.
Yeah.
And that appointment is hanging out with Bonnie and eating dinner and playing trivia with my buddies. It's just as important as anything else.
It is an investment of who you want to be.
Correct.
That's what that is. So how do we get here, Coach Katie? You say you've got a spreadsheet and you've got some. How do we get to this point? Because I really believe most people listening to this are probably feeling like we do, a little bit uncomfortable because they're thinking about these things and probably thinking that they have failed about like we have said we have, to be honest.
Yeah, I mean,
and I hope you are. I hope you are, because that's where growth comes.
Well, and I think that that's really what we're talking about here is how can we grow and learn about ourselves, like no matter how old you are. And for me, I really, I started by looking at my calendar, like to see what have I been doing? I don't even know what I've done. I don't know where my priorities were because I didn't have anything written down. I also started like looking at the pictures on my phone, like going back through pictures, because that really kind of like, it gave me my highs and it gave me my lows. And that was very telling. And so once I did that, then I was able to say, well, you know what? What's important to me? Like, what do I need to focus on in my life just to function better and to have better relationships? And so I think that then I wrote down, financial, family, and fun, not necessarily in that order, but there were just things that came to mind that I have not thrived in, if you will. And from there, then I was able to start like plugging those things in first to my calendar. And then everything else is going to have to fall around that. Like, I'm great at getting my training in. I am not great at going on a date night or doing something, with my friends. Like, I will always prioritize doing workout, doing my training over doing something with my friends or my husband.
Why?
Well, because it's on my schedule. I have a goal, like that's why it's always come easy to me. But it also, the problem is like being creatures of habit, it's a habit. It's my go-to place. It's my comfort zone.
Mm-hmm.
Some people are super comfortable in front of the TV. I am super comfortable running away from everything.
Mm.
And I mean that literally. But
so do you have goals in these other areas?
Well, I'm working on it. But I mean, the main thing was to first identify them as areas of opportunity, as you say. And then start to work towards those, as Jed said, day by day, step by step. But the first thing really was taking that calendar out and changing how I plan my week. Because I think that's been a big problem for me, is everything else was coming first instead of putting my family first or my friends first.
I want to push on you a little bit.
Okay. Oh boy.
Do you think you will be successful knowing, and again, a lot of people that listen to this podcast are going to be very similar in type A, achievement based, goal oriented.
Right.
How long are you going to be able to make this happen just by putting it on your calendar without having some goals that you're shooting for? That is that carrot that is out there in the future of, this is what I want my financial life to look like. This is what I want my family life to look like. It's what I'm shooting at.
Right. So what I did,
And I'm not asking you to reveal those. I'm just saying how
I have goals. I definitely have things I want to accomplish with each one of these.
Yep.
But in order to accomplish those, it's got to hit the calendar.
Mm-hmm.
If something does not hit my calendar, I used to tell people, like, I have a notebook. If it's not my notebook, or I didn't write it down, or I don't put it in my phone, it's not going to happen.
That's right.
And essentially now, if it does not hit my calendar, if it's on some random list or a sticky note, it probably, I mean, I'll get it done. But really, in order to have actionable items for me, it has to hit my calendar. Once things hit my calendar, then I can make it happen. But before that, really, it's just kind of out there.
So how'd you calendar your week this week?
Well, this week I just started. But so thanks, Kevin. But
well, what's today?
Today is, I don't know, the 27th.
No, what is today? What day is today?
Today's the day we do hard things.
Monday, Tuesday. We got Monday, Tuesday,
Wednesday.
So you're halfway through your week.
Yeah, but I want to start next week.
You see the problem?
Yeah, but no, I do and I don't, because I have a whole process that I'm going through that's actually larger than just what I'm doing here.
Mm-hmm.
So like I have like some worksheets and things I'm filling out, and just I'm like I've really embraced the project. And so I want to finish those before I make my concrete goals, before I really put it all into place. And also,
are you comfortable with that?
Doing that? No. It's no, absolutely not.
You know, this is a week you're never going to get back.
This week? Oh, but this week I'm using to really
okay.
It's my week. It's the only week of the year when I don't write training schedules for my athletes. And so it's the only week where I actually have a little bit of time in between for planning. And so to be able to take some of that time and actually plan for myself, I've never done before. I'm always planning for everybody else.
Because none of your athletes have any big races coming up or anything.
You had workouts, Kevin.
Well, point being, and I'm not trying to be a thorn in your side on that, but I do the same thing of it. Sometimes you just got to start. And even if we don't have the whole plan laid out for us, some of these things, I know for me, like there's a few things that I just knew, like, man, this is the reason you've gotten worse in these areas. These are the reason. What do you need to start doing right now? And then fleshing those goals out of what they are. But here's some things that are going to immediately start changing whether you have gotten worse in the last 5 years or whether you've just maintained the status quo, which I consider failing. I think until the day we die, we should be growing. I know there's some things that every single week I need to be doing.
Mm-hmm.
Every single week. And sometimes you just got to start doing those things. And you talk about that calendar, putting them on the calendar and then making them be things that are, I know I've had to look like my default is always going to be to stay here and I'll be here with the last people to leave.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have to be. I choose to do that. Well, and when I do that, it's stealing time from my family. Time I'm never going to get back. When I look back over the last 5 years, it's my biggest regret is that how many times has my family said, Dad's at work? Now, has it provided some good things for them? Have I tried to be engaged and involved? I think I've done a good job. Have I done as good a job as I could? Have I been as excellent in that as I have in other areas of my life? And the answer is no. And when you see that, and you say what's important, you better form a plan and start executing it immediately.
I think that's really good advice. Thank you. I'll take that to heart.
Jed, man, you've had some good points on this. What's floating around in your head as we come towards the...
How much of this I haven't done yet. I've got to get started on this coming year. There are going to be some focus changes that I need to prepare for, but none of this is easy.
It's uncomfortable, honestly.
Right. It's something you've got to do.
Mm-hmm.
It's something you've just absolutely got to do.
And nobody's going to do it for you.
Right. To your point about being proud of being busy. Back when I was, again, going back to a previous employment, this is not breaking my arm to pat myself on the back. I was the best in the state at what I did. Mm-hmm. Other people told me that.
Why? Why were you the best?
On the wall.
What made you the best? What do you think made you the best? Because you worked more than everybody else?
No, I don't think that's it.
Okay.
I don't think that's it
Good.
at all.
Good.
But I work more than everybody else.
Right.
A particular skill set whereby I say a couple things and then people just start pouring out words and emotions that I can turn into things that make other people feel words and emotions is why I was good at it. In my mind, I was good at it because I worked more than everybody else. And I did. Right. I worked more than everybody else.
And so did that drive you to work more?
Yes.
Right.
Yeah.
Kevin, why do you stay here till the end of the night? Why do you stay here late, Kevin?
Because I think it becomes our identity.
Yeah. That's right. What it is. Nobody's going to outwork me. Yeah. I didn't get a job I really wanted one time because the other guy's selling point was nobody's going to outwork me. And then he got in the job and was lazy.
So do you think that stuck with you?
No, there's no question. Why else? To recognize the kids who are doing it, yeah, that's one thing. To maximize the efficiency of your product, that's another thing. But you tell me another good reason that a guy goes to the cross-country state championships and stops back by tennis and goes to cover a rescheduled football game in the same day.
Nobody.
I'm probably going to get in trouble for saying this, but I don't think there's a statute of limitations on employment fraud. So when I worked for newspapers, there wasn't a week I worked 40 hours.
Right.
In the summer, I might work 20. But I worked 65, 75, 80 when school was in session.
Wow.
And that's not normal. People shouldn't do that. But yeah, to your point, I did it. And when I did it, because I wrote more things, because more people saw it, because the results were better. Right.
You identified working more with better.
In a way you can equivocate that. It's not right, but if more is better, then even more than that might be even better.
Right. I think it's a mentality though, and I really have to question though, given the fact that we're all about the same age, if that's part of like the era that we grew up in.
There's no question.
Work more.
I passed along something to my replacement at the newspaper that really needed to be done. Not long after I left, I gave him all the details, all the basics, and said, "Hey, these are the people you need to call. This is something that needs to be handled. Here's how to do it the right way." And the response I got was, "I'd love to do that this week, but I'm out of hours." I would rather have died than tell somebody I'm out of hours.
Right. Me too.
You know, and we look at those people with contempt.
Right, and shouldn't. He's right.
Yeah.
He'd worked his 40 that week.
But we do, and it becomes, certain things become our identity.
Right.
And it's where we get value. And like you said, all those hours you work, you'll relate to this because I'm the world's worst at it. It's comfortable to do that.
Yeah, just do it.
Because you know what everybody does? Everybody tells you how awesome you are.
Right.
Everybody tells you how great you are.
But it's not.
But it's not.
And that's why that busy, when you said, you know, I knew what you're getting ready to say. People always say, "Oh, but you're so busy." I cringe when people say, "Oh, you're busy." Because busy to me doesn't mean I'm necessarily productive. I'm just doing all sorts of stuff, running all over the place. Oh my gosh, just trying to keep up with everything. That is not where I want to be. And that's not what I really want to be associated with. I want to deliver quality. I want to be present with the people who I'm with when I'm with them. And so like that I'm busy or you're busy. Oh, I hate to hear that.
It and it's, there's this debate out there about balance and how should you be striving for a balanced life? I really believe that you can be excellent in everything you do. Here's the deal about balance. People would say, well, you're not going to be you're not going to be a great businessman and just kill it in business and grow a business and do all these things. You can't do that and be a great family man too. Where I have struggled and as I've been working through these things, is the answer be 100% present wherever you are in that moment in time. Of when you're at work, be 100% all in presence, absolute killer the entire time you're at work. Put the boundary in place. And then when that calendar moves to, now I am going home, or I'm going out on a date with my wife, or I'm going to spend time with my kids. Now I'm 100% all in, an absolute killer, husband, father, whatever role that is, athlete, wherever you find yourself, but you're 100% all in that point in time, and not trying to, well, I'm on this date, but I'm also responding to emails and listening to other people and talking to them. I struggle with this even in the community stuff of why a lot of times when we go out, we go to Greenville. You know why we go to Greenville?
So you don't see anybody.
So I don't run into people we know, because people will come up and they'll like, hey man, they see that you're with your family. Hey man, I won't bother you for a second, but I need to know this about something about school or something about whatever it may be. And then you switch into that mode of, okay, let me solve these people's problems, because it's intoxicating to be able to be the guy who can solve everybody's problems.
Yep.
And everybody wants to talk to you. But then your family is there and they're taking backseat again. So I think you got to be all in wherever you are. And I think you can do those things. It's hard.
It takes practice.
If you make the choice that you want to be excellent in it, and we talked about this before, excellence in everything. If you really want that, you better be willing to work for it, and you better be willing to cut out the crap. The stuff that's in your life that doesn't matter, that's wasting your time, get rid of it, and focus on the things that matter.
Wow. Thank you.
We've stepped into it today.
That was,
Yeah.
and you know, when we did the podcast before today, I was smiling the whole time. I was like really happy, and here we are, and I have not been smiling a whole lot. I'm just like really deep in thought.
Well, but I think you should be smiling
Maybe inside I am.
because you're in control. You're in. Why we don't smile is when we look at the spilled milk and we cry about it.
I'm not crying.
I know you're not crying,
Not yet.
but we look and we say that and we're like, oh man, so many regrets. Instead of looking and saying, I'm in complete control today.
Yeah.
I'm in complete. You know, it's the reason the podcast is named "Do Hard Things Today" because I really believe that if you will just focus on winning today in the areas that you've said are important to you, if you will just focus on that, tomorrow does take care of itself. Because tomorrow is another day, and then you know what you worry about tomorrow? You worry about doing the hard things, the things that are important to you. Do them that day, and then the next day will take care of itself. And the next thing you know, the compound effect takes place, and you look up and you was like, "Wow,
I did it.
did it!" And it was just a series of choices. So wrap us up. Either one of you.
Either
What
way.
else? What else we're going to say about this?
I have said everything I have to say. I think we probably all have a lot of work to do. And I really do think that the work happens here when you sit down by yourself with a piece of paper and a pencil and or a pen and really write everything out so you can kind of see it and review it and then plan from there. So I just encourage everyone to take some time and do that. Even if you just start, I think starting for me was the hardest part, but with Kevin's encouragement, or multiple texts, I went ahead and did this, a few weeks ago, and I really felt good after I did. And now I feel like I need to go back and kind of edit things a little bit, but I do feel like I'm making progress, and I appreciate that.
So what's this spreadsheet you're talking about?
The
That you're going to
spreadsheet,
make available?
yeah, the spreadsheet, it's basically a week plan, and it gives you 15 hours a day. And I encourage people to plug in the important stuff first, and you need to plug in travel time. It allows you to really see how much time you have available each day. Leave yourself a little wiggle room in there, but in case you're running late or something like that. But it really allows you to see, and you can use a calendar for it too, but the spreadsheet just kind of made it mine a little bit more rather than my calendar with anything else on it, which is why I did it in a spreadsheet. But, you've got 15 hours a day. So how are you spending that? What are you doing with that? That's a lot of time.
Mm-hmm.
It's really a lot of time when you look at it. And that's like, from if you start at 6 a.m, yeah, you can add a couple extra hours some days, but I left you 9 hours to sleep or do nothing.
Yep.
But I just felt like sharing that with people just to help people, have something to look at and to scribble on, would just be helpful.
I think it will be. And we will put that in the show notes and be able to share that. And maybe it may be able to even do a follow-up to this of showing people how to use the spreadsheet, do a video about it. And I think revisiting this, maybe once a month, not a full long-form podcast, but a shorter, just revisiting this journey of going and becoming what we say we want to become.
I think also once you have everything kind of the way you want it, or even if you don't, we're practicing all of this. We're not looking for perfection right
That's
away.
right.
And I think we get so caught up in having the perfect plan that sometimes you forget, this is life. Things are going to happen, but you want to at least practice what you're trying to do. Also, put it somewhere where you can see it, like short form, so that you're constantly reminded of what you're working towards, because it's so easy to make a pretty plan and then put it away and not look at it. And when you do that, you're not going to make progress.
You get busy.
Yeah, you get busy and you forget to come back to it, or put it in your calendar once a month to kind of do a check-in and a review. I found that helpful with other goals that I've had.
All right. Planning your year. And hopefully this is something that becomes habitual for you. That is something that you're using to be able to go out and become and be the person that you say you want to be. Because we all want to do probably roughly similar things. We all want in our lives. And, those things that are on fire in our lives are the ones that get dealt with. And we keep kicking the can down the road on these areas that are super important, but just don't seem extremely urgent at the time until they are. And then a lot of times when they do become urgent, it's too late. And don't let yourself get to that point where they are too late. So a lot of stuff, a lot of this will be in the show notes, and you will have this resource that Coach Katie came up with, and you can start taking back your life today. You can do that. And no stronger time to say these words than right now. And that's do hard things today, and tomorrow will take care of itself.